You're circulating content that is not suitable for kids like me.
Welcome to Crime Crazy, the weekly true crime podcast with Aaron Plime.
And Diana Seacon.
And
Amanda Mighton.
where we prove
That we know nothing about our legal system.
But apparently that doesn't stop us.
love it. Guys, we have a guest.
Yay!
We didn't even kidnap this one.
No.
I don't know. This is a story about a kidnapping.
I feel like you cannot possibly blame me for kidnapping you when the way that this whole thing went down was...
That's what I'm saying. Is that I'm here because I was kidnapped. And now I'm here to tell my tale.
Oh, okay. But you're not kidnapped for the podcast.
No.
Because that was sort of like a reverse kidnap. Let me tell you which days I'm staying at your house so you can put it on your calendar.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
There's very little I can consistently give her a hard time about. And since she keeps telling over and over about the gin, then I have to pick something. Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
This is...
I feel like I'm a competent house guest. There's food.
Yeah, no, and you clean. It's great. You can stay whenever. Plus, you brought your daughter along, who is apparently a natural podcaster.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And entertained my
She's
kids
done extensive
and
research.
Hours
and hours of study.
I hear that she is actually banned from listening to Crime Crazy.
Well, she came upstairs one day and was like, I love Auntie Erin's podcast. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be listening to
Shouldn't
this.
hear
Was this in the
that.
Jordan days or the Diana days?
This is in the Diana. This was
Oh, yeah.
recently.
She should not be
And I was
listening.
Right?
Well, I did tell her. I was like, well, I guess if you're going to learn about things, at least I know that there's this liberal feminist bent. Right?
Yes. No
That's
advocating
good.
crime.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
She's being told not to commit the crimes.
We don't mock the victims.
She's gonna learn some shit.
But depravity. There's a lot of depravity.
Oh, gore.
So much.
I am
So
big into
much.
gore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is an eventful couple of weeks. We've had 2 guests in a row.
We have.
They're both the same family. While we were corrupting your daughter by letting her be on our podcast, we did say, you said she could come down here and do it.
I did.
So can you give your verbal permission?
Yes, Betsy was allowed. It's like when you see little children in R-rated movies. Did you know who's the girl in Interview with the Vampire?
Oh,
in the movie. They're
She's
in the movie. Right.
Yeah.
Not in the movie theater, which was what I was
Kirsten
thinking.
Dunst? Is that who it is?
I have no idea.
Maybe.
I've never
Yeah,
seen
maybe.
So anyways, she
That was
was
a long time
in
ago.
Interview with the Vampire, but wasn't allowed to watch the movie.
No, nobody should have watched that movie.
Well, I finally watched it 2 years ago. I kind of liked it.
Anne Rice makes me weep with boredom.
That's fair. Anyway,
Even
so
Brad
Betsy
Pitt couldn't get me through that movie.
Betsy was sent down to watch or to participate in
Yes.
the podcast.
She did an awesome job.
She did.
She talked about penises.
Excellent. Well, yes, I heard.
I would like you to know that you are raising a daughter who is aware of biology.
She is.
Yep.
And is also hilarious and has
Oh my gosh.
she's so witty.
Yeah.
Middle school has been a transition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You go to school with all of those other preteen and teenagers, and just your world cracks right open.
Yeah.
It is true.
True story.
My child just came home and was talking about dabbing and whip and nay and all this stuff.
My
I'm like,
child-
why?
My child has informed me that the dab is dead.
Oh, Tobin will not be happy to hear that because it is his thing.
Well,
that
it's probably
and
not
bad
dead in
knock-knock
kindergarten.
jokes.
I don't know. I've heard it's dead.
Do you want to hear a knock knock joke?
Yeah.
This is Tobin's that he made up the other day and told me.
Okay.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
A tree.
A tree who?
Trees can't talk. It's funnier when the 5-year-old does.
It's pretty good. Pretty good that way.
So, I guess we need to talk about what we've learned. Diana, did you learn stuff about our legal system again? The eye roll is hard.
Nope.
Did you learn stuff about our legal system again?
No!
You didn't tell us last week what the title was, because you always title your notes. Tell us what the title was, Diana.
I might have learned something about our legal system.
Confession. Confession right there. Last week was really, that was the theme, was just everybody confessing to everything they were doing.
All of the things. So I did not learn anything about our legal system this week.
What did you learn?
So I learned something really cool. You probably don't remember because I am elderly.
You are like falling apart right before my very eyes.
That is not a lie. So back in the day when...
It was a Thursday. Keep going.
Okay, so I just learned that because my mom just texted me because she is in the hospital.
Shitter's full.
So what I learned, so back in the day when home internet connections were first being a thing, my Biffle Barb, hi honey, told me about this organization called SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial
Intelligence.
Intelligence. Yep.
I used to run that on my computer
Right.
when I was in bed.
Yeah.
all
So
night
you
long.
you could hook up to SETI's website and allow it to use your processing power in order to search for extraterrestrial life. So you'd turn it on at night and let it run calculations. So that was really cool. There is now an app that allows you to do the same thing, but for cancer research.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
Definitely more humanitarian than just like Bitcoin mining.
Aliens. Oh,
Right.
Yeah, that too.
Because that's the other thing you can do with your computer's processing power.
Oh, yeah. No,
True,
I don't care about
true.
that. So DreamLab is an app run by the Garvan Institute of Medical Research in Australia. They needed more computing power to speed up cancer research, and they can do that using your phone. The app is available via the Apple App Store or Google Play. And when you're going to be not using your phone for a while, put it on its charger and let it do its work. It tells you what project you're working on. It tells you details about the project. So right now I'm working on a drug study. Gives updates on the research. And as somebody whose family is affected by cancer, like there's so little that you can actually do in the grand scheme of things. Like my $50 to the American Cancer Institute's not doing anything, right?
Right.
But so this is a real concrete way that you can contribute to cancer research.
Oh, cool.
You can make it so that it only works on Wi-Fi.
Right.
So you don't have to use up your cellular data. If you don't want it to use a ton of Wi-Fi, if you have like a limited plan,
Yeah.
you can put a cap
Yeah.
for all of that. And it's really cool. So I'll post this on social media and in the show notes. I've been doing it for not quite 2 weeks. And I just put my phone on the charger at night and I turn it on all night. It does keep your screen on, so I turn mine upside down so it doesn't keep me up all night.
Okay.
And then when I wake up, it's like, you've helped crunch 32 calculations or 43 calculations.
Nice.
And I feel like I'm making an actual contribution to cancer research.
Do you know if you can do other things on your phone while it's running?
You can't. It turns it off. It
Okay.
needs the dedicated power. So best
So
at
then-
night.
If you're using your phone as your alarm, does it still go off?
I think so.
Okay.
I haven't tested that yet.
Okay.
I would guess so.
Right.
But it
Wait,
would probably stop the
You
processing.
don't use your phone for an alarm. Do you have an alarm clock? How old is she?
She is so
Wait.
old.
No. This is Chris Mullen's fault.
Oh, I am
Oh.
ready.
Yep.
I have one of those wake up alarms. The
Oh.
Philips Sunshine wake up
I have
alarms.
one of those too, actually, but
Well,
I don't
but
use
Chris
it.
told me about it, I don't know, 3-4 years ago now. And he was like, it's life changing. I'm like, it's a fucking clock. And he's like, no, trust me, life changing. It's life changing, you guys.
Yeah, they are really nice.
They are really great. So no, I use that because the phone alarm, I use that when I'm at a hotel and it scares me. Because now I'm used to being gently lulled out of sleep,
Do you
not
choose
jarred out
by
of
the
it.
birds? Or is it? Do you have the birds wake you? The bird
No,
chirps? They're too quiet. You couldn't hear
yeah,
them.
I couldn't hear him. No, it has to jar me. Oh, the bird's on the wake up alarm?
Yeah.
No, I do, because then I hear the owl. I thought you meant like on my phone alarm.
She just uses birds. Birds. Do you use birds? No. I mean, I do.
Yeah. No, I do use that one because then there's the one that, whoo, that's the one that I hear.
That's the first sound of Diana's morning every day.
Tweet, 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 woohoo.
There you go.
We went into a bird store this week.
That's Ben's favorite store.
It is. It's Ben's favorite store is Wild Birds Unlimited. And
I mean, he kept saying that.
yeah.
But it's not real birds.
But it smells like birdseed.
It's and then they
Isn't it
play
like
bird
paintings
music.
and shit?
No, it's bird feeders.
Like bird feeders and squirrel feeders and
Oh.
all kinds of gardening.
I thought it was a whole different thing. Okay.
No, I might actually need to go back. Like now
Now you want some bird.
bird.
You have the perfect windows for bird feeders.
Yeah.
So, and I want the squirrel feeder because we have one squirrel who likes to play tightrope on our.
Most people aren't actually interested in attracting squirrels.
I still want to see the fucking chipmunks.
I don't know.
You know, I had to go to a zoo to see chipmunks.
It's fair.
I have not yet seen one here.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, other than at the zoo. It was a wild one. Just it was
Oh,
at
good.
The zoo.
Good.
So I don't know if it was really wild.
It's probably stealing food from the other animals.
I mean, it wasn't anyone's pet.
No.
That makes it a wild chipmunk.
Ish. Still at a zoo. Also, you know what else is at the zoo? In the rainforest area of Como, there are like a gazillion mice in there now.
Yeah.
They're so cute, and they like help each other and climb the little vines. And they're just running. They just got in somehow, and they were like, "This is warm and full of food, and like we're gonna live here now." And they're so cute.
They're in the big cat house too.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, giraffes, real weird.
Yeah.
Those tongues.
Well, they
So
sit there
awesome.
and they lick the one at the zoo was sitting in his pen and just licking the door frame in the same spot, and it was soaking wet.
Gross.
The big black tongue.
Yeah, their tongues are gross.
Yeah,
It's so they don't get sunburned.
their tongues.
Because they spend so much time licking things. Fair.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you were gonna lick something all day, you would want. Maybe it's because they are sunburned.
I don't think up here that is a problem.
Also, guys, what I learned in Minnesota, zoos are sad when it gets cold outside.
Everybody's inside.
You're walking around the zoo and it's like, okay, everything must have died because there's nothing here.
It's
The
just
reindeer
cold.
were still out.
Well, reindeer.
Reindeer. So, Amanda, did you learn anything this week?
Well, so I didn't have anything specifically that I learned, but I thought I would tell you guys something that maybe you don't know that's kind of fun. So in Colonial Williamsburg, where I worked in college,
Yes.
and I worked in one of the taverns, they are fanatical about historical accuracy. So you have to hide all of the sort of things that make a modern restaurant run.
Right.
So all of the food in the tavern is actually I worked in Christiana Campbell's, is prepared in a sub basement.
Cool.
Because the actual basement is the bar, and then there's the main floor, and then there's a second floor. And it's all powered by tray-veyors. There's a single tray-veyor that goes up and brings all the food, and it stops on the main floor, and there's somebody who works in the pantry whose job is to like fill bread stuff, but also watch and like decide if this tray should come out to this floor or should go up to the second floor.
Oh, cool.
Which is very, very cool. It's really uncool when the tray-veyor breaks down
Yeah.
and you're working on the second floor.
Yeah.
And you have to go all the way
all
to
the
the
way.
sub-basement because everything's also served on crockery, like
Yeah.
heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not Chinette.
No, very heavy. Yeah. So there you go. Sub-basements in Colonial Williamsburg. There's tons of things like that there.
It's like a paternoster for food.
A what?
A paternoster. It's an
what?
old style elevator
Yeah.
that's like one big like spiral that keeps going around and around, and you
Yeah.
hop on until it takes you to the next floor, and you hop
So
off.
it's like a corkscrew.
These are more
Kinda,
like,
yeah.
have you ever had to slide a tray on the thing at IKEA and it's
Yeah.
just got those two little
Yeah.
bridges? So it's like that. So you also
Ah.
put them on to take it back down to the kitchen, and if you miss
oh.
and let go, it can fall.
Oh no.
On
Four
somebody's
floors?
food.
Well, these are it's usually like the ones that would be going down that are trash, right?
Oh, okay.
Like they're empty. They can fall, and it'll fall 4 floors, and it makes a terrific noise when the
can
pottery
imagine.
crashes
Oh,
and silverware after falling that far.
Now, when you worked there, when I worked in the restaurant and something like that happened, the immediate response by everybody was job opening.
Yeah.
You were 3 floors away
Yeah,
from the result. So I am sure they said lots of terrible things about us servers down in the kitchen.
Probably.
Absolutely sure of it.
I feel like that's kind of how restaurant jobs work, though, is
Completely.
pretty much the servers just bitch about each other the whole time.
Unless they're sleeping together, which is Shoney's
But no,
works.
then they're still bitching. Like
That's true.
that actually raises the level of bitchery.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
for sure.
God, I hated working in Colonial Williamsburg so much.
I
I love
know.
Colonial Williamsburg, but my jobs, like,
Yeah, your job was pretty terrible.
it sucked.
Mine
you
was
there?
pretty
I
awesome.
was a
Sorry.
server,
Okay.
but it was in the lodge, and we didn't have any patronage at all. There was only really one.
She didn't get to wear a
room.
costume. That's actually why she's super
Oh.
upset.
Yeah.
It was so hot. I didn't want to wear a costume. It was
Oh yeah,
always
it was
hot
really
in
hot
there.
where we were too. But we got to wear costumes, and they do your laundry.
Oh,
Yeah, they
that
do
is
do
nice.
laundry. Yeah.
Do you ever think about how it's not really until the last 50 years or so that women could be at all comfortable during the summer months? And why is this so recent?
Yeah. It's just
Craziness.
misery. all
I
the
mean,
time.
to be fair, most men were not really that comfortable during the summer months
No,
either, wearing
right.
like wool suits.
Right, but why did it take so long
linen.
for somebody to be like,
We should wear fewer clothes
how about shorts? Let's just cut that shit off at the knees. You know?
right?
because then you'd look like a baby.
I suppose. Worth it.
Yeah. Erin,
Yes,
you learned something?
I did. Okay.
Amazing.
I don't know why I didn't do this one last week because this is like the thing I have been sitting on forever, and Diana's excited to hear it.
I am.
So I got a phone call from my baby mama, from Tanya in prison, and during the course of the conversation, she goes, "Oh, did I tell you I got tattoos?" And I was like, "No, you did not tell me that you got tattoos." I knew she had one. She got one the first or second year that she was in prison, and it was initials on her sternum in a heart. And so I've actually seen that one because during one of the visitations she was able to like show me. It was like on her chest.
But whose initials?
Her girlfriend at the time, another inmate, they don't speak anymore.
That's what happens when you get somebody's name tattooed on you.
Yeah.
It's like knitting them a sweater.
Right. It's just no good. It's the
But
end
the
of the
prison
relationship.
Prison version. Well, so even when they got that tattoo, she was like, so because of our initials, oh God, what was it? So hers would be T-O, and the other girl was A-M, maybe? She was like, so we can just, like, come up with another meaning for it, because it's like a word. Or I don't know. It doesn't matter. No, I'm not saying it was a well thought out, but just that they, even as they were doing it, were preparing for when I have a tattoo of somebody I'm no longer with. But so this time she has gotten on the tops of each foot her daughter's name that is her 10-year-old, and then my daughter's name on the other foot, and so yeah, those are the tattoos she got. And I was like, okay, so I just gotta know, how the hell did you get a tattoo? Like, I know people get tattoos in prison, but like, really,
what is
what
that? How
did
does that
you
work?
do?
Yeah.
So here's how you get a tattoo in prison,
Ooh.
at least where she is. They buy a sewing needle, because you can buy needles to fix your clothes. They cost $3 on commissary. for a
Holy
needle.
moly.
So you buy a needle, and she's like, it's great, because then afterwards you could use it for like sewing. Okay. So then you get a pencil or a pen, and you tie the needle to the pencil or the pen so that you have a longer thing to hold on to. And you can buy thread, but it sounds like more often they just unravel something in their room, like their pillow slip, and use some of that thread. And then you have to commit a crime, which is that you have got to somehow get an ink cartridge from a printer, which, of course, is not something you can buy in commissary when you're in prison.
Nope.
Even though, like, typewriters apparently are cool.
I thought you just
You can buy a
used-
typewriter?
Oh,
we had
previous story.
Yeah, we had another story where a guy managed to have a typewriter, and then he forged all these documents
Yeah.
Well
on his
played, sir.
typewriter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you just used the ballpoint.
That is what I've
Pen
heard
ink.
as well.
Okay.
But the ink that they were using was toner.
Okay.
And so not even like inkjet ink, but like toner. She said that so you have to be friends with somebody whose like prison job is working in any kind of clerical position. And then when the ink gets low or the toner gets low in the machine, they'll steal it and then they'll sell it to you. And then you empty that out and like make a thick dark paste.
Because it's still like 3/4 of the way full, even when it says it's empty.
Right. And then it's just a poke tattoo. It costs $3 to get each of her tattoos.
Plus a crime.
Well, and she's in prison, so like, but still, I mean, $3. That was Diana's face is kind of like, okay, wait, is it worth it?
No,
Like
no.
You get what you pay for? Like,
Yeah.
Well, but I feel a little bit like the exchange rate is very different.
But even so, that's...
Well, I'm thinking about like how much it hurts to get a tattoo with like a tattoo machine.
Well, she's getting them
Which
in
is
painful
vibrating.
places.
That's
like
true.
Feet,
Yeah,
feet
feet
are
and ribs
hurt.
and-
Yeah.
No, feet hurt.
Yeah.
So, if you get caught, you are not allowed to get a tattoo in prison. You're not allowed to give a tattoo in prison. You're not allowed to have that much physical contact with a person. So, if you get caught, you get in trouble. You get a ticket. And it can take away some of your good time. It can take away some of your privileges, depending on what other things you've done. Like it could change all kinds of things, make your life more miserable. And it costs $5, so you get fined $5. So at max, she was looking at $8 a tattoo, plus whatever. Oh, and then the $3 needle. So $11 a tattoo, plus however much she had to pay for the cartridge and the pen or the pencil.
Wow.
So she says they are lovely. You can't send pictures. I was like, oh, you should just show me someday when you're not in prison anymore. You can't text me a picture, so.
That seems like it would be hard to hide.
So the thing is that you only have to hide it until the scab stage is over.
Right, but that would be the hardest part because you're wearing shoes on a new wound.
Yeah, you just have to wear shoes on a new wound. I mean,
Yeah.
you just can't not be covered up.
Right, but that makes it... The first tattoo I got, I made the mistake of wearing clothes right next to, and there are still some missing parts.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially when you're not working with something that's going to like help keep the depth the same.
Yep.
You're working with like whatever some girl did with a needle. It was all poke, so it's like not thick, solid.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, I'm sure they don't usually turn out wonderfully.
Right.
They do get, like, she ordered cream from commissary to put on it and protect it, but yeah, so that is how they do their tattoos.
Wow.
So things I have learned: how to make wine in a toilet,
How to make laundry soap?
how to make laundry soap, how to do a tattoo, how to get drugs into prison, and how not to have them be found. She did not, for the record, to my knowledge, ever bring drugs into a prison. But she did have some very amusing stories about like girls who had just arrived and then went to like play basketball and stuff just fell out of them while they were playing basketball. So that was.
So you often worry about my moral compass. In that you think I'm going to commit some crimes and end up on next week's episode. But I feel like
I do worry about that.
I feel like you are preparing for when you end up on next week's episode.
I will say,
Studying.
Yeah, I know, I just feel a little bit that way.
If you get a stick and poke octopus, we're going to have talk.
Yeah, that's never. I want the octopus to be the size of my arm. That's never going to happen. That this experience, like knowing her and hearing all of her prison things, has both made me feel less and more scared of ever being in prison. Like, it is nice to know that at least in her experience, and now she's in maximum security, that women tend to be more helpful and nurturing than competitive and violent, unlike a men's prison where it is definitely competitive and violent. And so that helps a little bit. Should I ever be wrongfully accused of something and sent to prison?
Or commit a crime.
I'm not committing any crimes. I'm not doing it. It won't happen. Nope. But also, there's just, it's just awful.
Yeah.
I think it would just be awful.
I think that's the point.
It is. It is the point. But I don't know that I'd survive it.
I've known you a long time. You would not.
There we go.
You're too soft.
Whereas Amanda would rule that joint.
You're terrifying. But I'll also clean your kitchen.
It all works out in the end.
Speaking of committing crimes, did I tell you about my dream I had about you?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay, so I had this dream the other night that we had been doing our like onboarding program that we're about to do again, and that it just was a disaster. It was total disaster. It was awful. Like, I just felt awful about it. I went home. I was miserable. Hours later, finally calmed down enough to go to bed. And as I'm going to bed, it's like 1 a.m. I suddenly remember that I had received a text message or a phone call or something about you. I knew this thing. And I had forgotten to get in touch with you because my day had just been so distracting and horrific. You had killed your mother. I know.
I love you, Mom.
I know, right? And and even in the dream, I was like, I know she didn't, murder her mother. Like, that's not what happened. And I don't think you were imprisoned because I was like, oh, I should text her. And by the way, you kill your mom, and I'm like, I should text her.
I'm sure she had a good reason.
Well, no. So at one point in the dream, I was like, so I don't know how this happened, but it had to have been a misunderstanding or an accident. And then,
or poison.
Well, no, I think I don't know if this is how it happened or if this was just what I thought had happened. I was pretty sure that you had a gun for some reason. You just had it in your hands, and that you accidentally shot her with it.
Oh.
But it was so tragic because I was like, I bet that Amanda is just absolutely beside herself miserable, and her mom's dead, and that's a real bummer.
Yes, that is how I would characterize it. It's a bummer.
It's a real bummer.
Well, there you go.
So you, my friend, are going to prison.
I hope not.
But I can tell you how to get a tattoo and make wine, and
it's good. It's
where
good.
to put the drugs. So you
should write this all down for me.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
In a text message.
Well, I won't be able to get that once I'm in prison.
Well, you're not going to be able to take it with you into prison either.
Well, I don't know, but maybe I can flashcards. Can I study it?
You could. The only way to take something with you, and it's not foolproof, but if you get a Bible, they are supposed to let you keep your religious book with you if they transfer you to another location.
What if my
the definition of religion is very loose.
Well, also true.
So we could start writing our own Bible.
There we go.
That would be so much fun.
It would be.
That sounds terribly boring.
No.
I would like to just brainstorm it and then let Diana worry about all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got some things I want to put in there.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't want to have
some parables.
Yeah, Leviticus. We're gonna just not. I'm not doing that part.
No.
So
until
Diana's real excited. She's like, okay, I got the first draft done, and so all right. So that is what we learned. Who has a story? It's my turn, right?
It's your turn.
Awesome. No, I'm gonna back up for a second. So one reason that Amanda's joining us today is because she has some experiences. We promised that we would not totally talk about your Philadelphia trip until Amanda could be on the podcast. And lo and behold,
I am
she
here.
flew halfway across the country just to be on our podcast. Oh, no, that's not why you're here.
I mean... Yeah, we'll go with that.
Mm-hmm. Just to be on Crime Crazy,
just
guys.
To be here.
Yes.
Plane tickets.
Yeah.
Hotel rooms.
No.
Just for Crime Crazy. So
if you'd like to subscribe to our Patreon.
Yes. We might even help her pay for her trip.
So I was describing this to someone. Maybe it was Mike and Andrea last night, the friends that were over.
Yeah.
That we went to Philadelphia and had on a work trip.
So back up. You and I went to Philadelphia on a work trip.
Yes,
yeah,
Diana and I
invited.
went to Philadelphia on a work trip, and we had a small amount of free time.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that we chose to do, I went with some of the sales team, jogging, ran up the rocky steps, jogged down the river. Yeah, that was my Philadelphia thing.
Well,
done.
Was that when you went to a friend's bar or restaurant?
Yeah.
Okay, so I did also choose that. Yes,
Yeah.
I chose jogging and eating.
I mean, okay,
These
so
are
like,
my things I chose.
jogging would not have been my choice.
I did not go.
Yeah, but eating sounds good.
Oh, the eating
That
was
meal
so
was
good.
so great. Can
Do
you
you
buzz
wanna-
market it?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
wanna plug?
Absolutely. So if you're in Philadelphia, you should go to my friend Kristen and her husband Andrew's restaurant. It's called Russet.
Yes.
Like a potato,
Yeah.
Yes, and the color.
right?
They also have a gorgeous Instagram. Andrew photographs all of the beautiful farm to table food that they get, the ingredients before they're so gorgeous. Spoiler alert, there are a lot of dead animals in those photos, so if that bothers you.
Yeah.
Like, because
but-
they're cooking whole animals. Or they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
he's
they're
a
all
butcher.
animals. I gotcha.
My favorite fun fact is that he is Terry Gross's favorite butcher.
Terry Gross.
From Fresh Air.
From Fresh Air.
From what? The disappointment in this room is making my soul die. What the hell are you guys
Aaron
talking
did
can't
not
believe you
grow
don't know
up
about
with
Terry
NPR in
Gross.
the way that I did.
Neither
I was
did
like,
I.
I didn't have NPR, period.
I didn't discover NPR until my 20s, but
But your 20s were like before we were born, so
true story.
not a true story.
She
I
is one of
wonder
the
how
best
old the
long
internet
form
thinks you are.
interviewers.
Yes.
Gotcha.
In
Ever.
the English language.
in the
Yeah.
English language. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Fantastic long form interviews.
Yes.
Anyways, she lives in Philadelphia.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. WHYY in Philadelphia.
That's right.
It's Fresh Air.
Have you ever seen the SNL skit Sweaty Balls?
Probably. I know your husband, so I feel like I've seen it.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it's a parody of
Right.
like Terry Gross and this
Yep.
whole NPR.
Yeah.
We're gonna need to watch this.
It is the season.
It is the season.
Awesome.
So yes, our chosen together activity was eating. I went jogging, and Diana's like, "Will you come with me?"
No. So when this trip came up,
That's true. That's true.
this trip came up, and Amanda said, "Hey, I need somebody to do this thing in Philadelphia. Do you want to do that?" And I said, "Yes, but I have two things.
That's right.
It's the first week of school, so I want to be here Tuesday morning
Yes.
so I can see Liam off to school."
Yep.
And she's like, "Yes, we can do that. I don't need you there till Wednesday." And I'm like, "Awesome." So looking at the schedule, Wednesday afternoon, I don't have to be in any meetings. I want to take that off.
Yes.
And Amanda's like, "Okay, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to go to the Mutter Museum. And as an added bonus, I will both not ask you to come with me nor talk about it."
I mean, that does sound fair. I'm guessing you didn't require her to go jogging with you.
Nope. I did not ask her to come. Not even.
Good call. I did not bring proper footwear. Or jog. So that was my... Oh, and then you're like, we can do both of those things, but also then can we go to my friend's restaurant for dinner? And I was like, yes. We can do it. So we're going to have a girls' afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not going to ask you because I knew it was not your thing, and you volunteered to come with. For which
I
was
did.
very happy.
This is the Amanda that no longer listens to the podcast, and we're letting her.
It's true.
Yeah. But she introduced us so that we could not make her listen to the podcast.
Actually, that's really true.
That is exactly how that went down.
Sometimes you just got to connect the right people so you don't have to do the things you don't like to do.
I feel like Amanda at some point in her office is like, if Diana says one more goddamn thing about H.H. Holmes.
And then she was like, wait, you know who would listen to this shit for hours?
Just saying.
I still do have your drawing of the
Murder Castle?
It's on my desk.
That's good.
So you guys went to a museum.
So, I like museums. I do. And so I said I would go.
You knew what it was.
Academically.
There's knowing, and then there's knowing.
There's knowing, and then there are the things that cannot be unseen.
Like?
Favorite part?
Favorite part?
Leaving.
When Diana bought the things at the gift store and we got the fuck out.
When Aaron slapped
there's
me
a
work
lot of-
questions and I didn't have to look
There's
at
a
things.
lot of really beautiful woodwork.
It is an old school. So the Mutter Museum is at the...
You should probably say what it is, too.
Yeah, we have talked about it, but you should review.
So it's at the Philadelphia College of Physicians. I don't remember what it was. But he was an early doctor, and he had a cabinet of curiosities, which is what it was called back in the Victorian times, which was mostly anatomical oddities that he both collected for research value because he taught at the medical school.
Right.
And also because
Shock
they're
value?
awesome. No, mostly because they're awesome. So the Mutter Museum is still very much set up in the style of a Victorian anatomical museum. So it's the beautiful woodwork and the cases, and it's not all like interactive and flashy. It's a very old school experience. It's a very small museum.
Okay.
Not small enough for Amanda's taste.
It's kind of mostly in the basement.
Hearing the
It was
stories,
mostly the
I thought
basement.
it was not small.
No, it is.
There's a lot packed into a very small space.
It's very compact, but it's a smaller space. The upstairs, the first level is kind of mezzanine to the basement level where a lot of it is, but very, very cool. Lots of very no longer politically correct descriptions of things.
The skulls, right? There's like a wall of skulls.
There's
that
a
were
wall of
labeled
skulls.
very-
Yeah, there were some idiots
nice.
and imbeciles
Yeah.
and
Yeah. So it was an experience.
Least favorite part.
Least favorite part. The soap lady was real gross.
Oh, that turned to soap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that can't be unseen. Like I'm still seeing that.
that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, gross.
That's
don't
her
think
nightmare.
I don't think I'd ever seen a soap lady before. It was pretty cool.
It was gross.
I mean, it both sounds really cool and really gross. Like, I feel like it would make me want to gag, but at the same
No,
time,
you
I'd
would
be
gag.
like, whoa.
Yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah. I did find the drawers and drawers and drawers and drawers of things that people had accidentally inhaled.
Oh.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Inhaled or swallowed?
I think a little column
little
A, little column B.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a guy who removed things from people's throats, non-specific.
Okay.
But yeah, so
what was the craziest
mostly,
thing they
it was
swallowed?
mostly buttons and pins and those sorts of things.
Like you said it in your mouth.
Being
and
a
then you-
tailor is
right.
is highly dangerous.
highly dangerous.
Yeah.
That's not how I would describe that profession generally.
Well, I don't know. But I still put pins in my mouth when I'm sewing, and I know better.
right, you've
But
seen the drawers.
I've seen the drawers. But, that was a lot. Yeah, we also learned that syphilis.
that was what I was
Oh,
going to
man.
say. Syphilis is amazing.
It has tried to wipe us out.
Yeah.
This is just insane because it attacks you on so many levels and gets so bad.
It is.
It doesn't
It wants
just
to
kill
eat your
you.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your brain.
It literally eats
But
your
your face
face.
first.
Oh yeah, your nose falls off.
Yeah, it's gross.
No, but it doesn't just kill people. Like I feel like diseases
No, it
a lot of
tortures
times
you.
just kill people.
Yeah.
And syphilis is like, no, that's for amateurs.
No, it makes you suffer. It is the disease that makes you believe in the biblical God.
Oh, yeah, it's like a plague.
Like it was definitely smote upon us for fornication.
Yeah, that was something. But Diana had a really amazing time.
I did.
She saw so many things. You should have seen the look of joy on her face.
joy.
And actually,
yes.
like, probably my favorite part of being in that museum was seeing the glee that emanated from Diana the entire time we were there.
Were they following
Eyes
me?
lit up. Eyes lit up. Cheekbones popping.
kind of like she looks right
I know.
now.
I think like this was that turned up to 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
the
a
whole
bucket
time.
list item.
Yep.
It really was.
Yep.
I've never been to Philadelphia before. We got like 3 hours to fucking see Philadelphia.
We did.
And that was really cool.
Yeah, it was.
It was everything I dreamed it to be. If you actually want to know more about the building in the museum, Dr. Mutter's Marvels is a really good book.
There you go. I think you asked what my real favorite part was. At the end, they had these buckets where you get the little clip to your museum pass is like a little button you clip on your shirt. And, at the end, they ask you to vote. Like, what brought you to the Mutter Museum today? And there were a lot of them in. It's a bucket list item.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was not one for my friend dragged me, and I didn't really realize what I'm getting into, but I'm here anyways.
I
feel like that was other.
audience.
Probably.
I know. I just went with other. But the second most full one was first date.
Oh my god.
So
Well, I mean, trial by fire.
there
really.
are
Like, are we gonna be
many,
able to
many,
get
many
along?
Dianas out in this world, apparently.
Yes,
It's
I
true.
believe it.
It's
I
true.
believe it.
So there you go.
I feel like the bucket should have been first date and right next to it last date.
Or both.
See
Right.
who
But what if it
puts
was
in
both?
which.
Yeah, how do you choose?
I think you just stick the buckets close enough together that you can stack them on the lip.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. because that would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, or you
Yeah.
just watch the couple at the end where the one whose idea it was his first date and the one who was brought along his last date.
Let's just be
Nice.
real clear about how it's going.
It is the swipe left.
You should know.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Of,
No idea.
Swipe right is good.
Okay, good. Then it's the swipe left of
Lots of
museum dates.
experience with that because we got
No,
married
it's
the
like-
same month.
It's like something in pop culture. Like,
I
swipe.
know, I know,
Yeah,
I
swipe
know.
right on this.
It's way more fun to think that in your spare time you're
I
like looking.
spend a lot of time browsing Tinder.
Well, but you.
I feel like I'm
and
more
your
of a Bumble
husband-
kind of gal.
You and your husband spend all the time shopping real estate.
We do. That's true.
Zero
That is
intention of buying.
basically like another form of shopping real estate.
Yeah, no, it's exactly
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
So also,
It's all about the comps, right? Like that's why you browse real estate is so you understand the comps. Like, yeah, maybe I should be browsing Tinder and just make sure that I have a good feel for the comps in the area. So when
Ben would
I'm
think
looking,
that's totally
so when I'm looking to refinance, I know how to measure that.
also
yeah.
I feel like this is a great marketing strategy for Zillow, who should definitely have swipe right, swipe left on their houses.
I mean, we're actually more fans of Redfin, their
Oh,
app,
I'm sorry.
and they do have great little heart features. And Ben and I have shared lists that we can
They
comment
have
on back and
picked
forth.
out a house for me to buy.
Oh, we did here.
It
Yes,
is like a street and a half over.
it's quite excellent.
It is amazingly gorgeous, like just beautiful, and it's so cheap.
Really?
Yeah,
South facing sun porch,
yeah.
gorgeous,
It
sort of
has- no, it has
Scandinavian
all of the
style.
things that I'm like, if this house had this, then maybe I would try to buy it. But it doesn't have a fireplace, and it doesn't have a porch, and
Check.
it doesn't have all of the
Check.
things.
Ooh.
Giant, gorgeous windows.
Mm-hmm.
It is lovely. I don't have any money, and my credit is shot to hell, but it is lovely.
How about I
know.
write you a check for $35,000?
Okay. And if I just wait like a week, I can cash
I'm
it.
gonna post date it for 2 weeks.
I did listen to that episode.
Yay! That doesn't count if you're in the room.
I was still listening.
Breaking the fourth wall there.
There's no, I feel like no one has any delusions about what is happening here.
True story.
Awesome.
I'm glad you went with me.
I'm glad I went too.
I will not make you do that again.
I will not go again. But I'm generally up for weird stuff. And whatever.
Well-
let's go try this thing. Let's go.
Oh yeah,
All right,
And-
let's
but
do
that,
it.
That is ultra weird. Like that is a
That is
specific
definitely.
flavor.
Yep. mhm.
Yeah,
Can
that's a
I
specific flavor.
register a complaint?
Yes.
Concern? I mean, A, I wasn't invited. It's cool, guys. B,
Why don't you go ahead and take that up with your boss?
Yeah.
B, I really thought I would have been back to San Francisco by a year after starting, and so I could go to Azkaban.
Alcatraz?
Well, no, but I prefer to call it Azkaban because it's basically the same, and there are Dementors in Azkaban, which is more interesting.
Cool.
And I have not gotten to go.
Nope.
Because I didn't go the first time because Diana couldn't be there. It's sort of like the Juicy Lucy thing, Cheryl.
Sorry.
And
Budget
now-
cuts.
God damn it. So I think it is my turn to go first. Not that we're doing turns anymore. My story, I'm going to warn everyone in advance, is two things. One, unsolved as of yet. It's new, and I mean, it's not that we don't know who's probably responsible for it, but just that there's not a ton of information yet because it's
Was
new.
it you?
It was not me. Oh my god. Second thing, it involves dead babies.
Aww.
So it is pretty dark. However,
There's a
Stolen
reason
babies.
I don't listen to your podcast. And I think it's because then you start, like, it's fun. It's all fun and games. Till somebody brings up dead babies. Or somebody takes you to a museum full of dead babies. Actually, we didn't mention it, but there were a lot of dead babies at that museum.
In jars.
Yeah,
Real
I
fucked
bet
up.
there were.
Yeah, it was
Well, so these babies were not murdered, so it's not, it's that's a little better.
I mean, neither were the ones at the
You know.
museum.
Well,
Unless you count by syphilis.
Well, all right.
I don't think we can accuse syphilis. I feel like that's never going to be prosecutable.
You know somebody's going to try.
Prosecutable.
Somebody's going to sue syphilis.
Me. How much money do you think I'll get?
Well,
None.
I don't think
None.
you have grounds.
No, I don't. That is
What aren't you telling
also
us?
true. Huh. Okay. So you may have heard of this because it is new as of like October-ish was when it all kind of came out. The Cantrell Funeral Home. Have you heard of this at all? It's in Michigan.
Nope.
So
I've heard of Rob Cantrell, who's a comedian.
And where in Michigan?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, that's an important piece.
I don't know. Yeah, the owner actually was Rob Cantrell.
No shit.
Whose father was also Rob Cantrell.
No, this Rob Cantrell's like in his 30s and a comedian in New York.
Detroit.
There you go. It's in Detroit. I was
Yes.
going to say, I feel like it's like
right.
near like Flint and Detroit and all that. This is not the only funeral home with a similar story in Michigan near Detroit. Like, I feel like it's all, it's an awful lot. So here, let me just tell you. So this funeral home was owned by Robert Cantrell II, who had inherited it from his father, Robert Cantrell Sr. He inherited the funeral home in 2016. Apparently this is like the family business. They have other relatives. Are you going through my text messages? Wow. There's a crime happening here.
Yep.
There might be like, I was going to
No.
say Christmas present information, but we already did Christmas. So he had inherited it from his father. It's like a family business. They have other family members who have funeral homes, and they all point to Robert Cantrell Sr. as like, we are continuing his work and we run it in the way you would have wanted it to be run, which is really fucking disturbing because in April of 2018, state regulators came in and shut the funeral home down for deplorable conditions.
Whoa. Were they infecting the corpses?
Well, so they also had an expired license and a number of other crimes. They had like over $20,000 in cash they had collected from families but never deposited or claimed. It was really sketchy.
Oh.
But the deplorable conditions were they found embalmed bodies, not refrigerated, hanging out in the garage. Some of them were moldy. And other ones, there was one that had an unknown liquid all over its face, like it was melting or something awful.
They were maybe trying to make a soap lady.
Maybe.
I can think of some terrible ways that unknown liquid can get on a face.
Well, yeah, but no, it's true. I don't think. Well, I don't know. I would like to not think about this, please. So I'm
Back
not
to
gonna
the
think about
depravity, right? Like, this is why Betsy can't listen.
it. No, she shouldn't listen to this one.
Turn it
Correct.
off, bug.
That's right.
When you start gagging, your mother will know.
Mm-hmm.
So, all kinds of like really, really bad issues. There was smells. Obviously, like if bodies are molding, there are smells.
Yeah.
One thing that I didn't know that I learned is that funeral homes are legally bound by federal requirements to supervise the proper disposal of a body within 180 days or 120 or 180 days of taking possession of it. And if they don't, that's a felony. So moldy bodies probably not going to fit that timeline. So it got sold. It got cleaned up and sold. And the new owner and the guy who actually owns it now decided to convert it into a community center. And which is, I mean, it's a little disturbing, but at the same time, it was probably in a really good location. It's a big building.
Yeah.
Like it would be, and that's a really good, like noble use for something that has had a rough life.
Yeah.
But as he is converting it, there are just these awful, awful smells. And I mean, this is after they've come in and done the whole like crime scene people and cleaned everything up, and still smells really, really bad. And then the police get a letter, a tip. There are babies in the ceiling. So they investigate. No. And they find 11 tiny bodies in the ceiling. They had a drop ceiling, much like the one that is like threatening to fall on our heads at the moment.
Wait, is that why I'm allergic to this room?
Babies. I won't lie. As I was reading this and like looking at the pictures, I was like,
Did you check the ceiling for babies?
"Shit, I need to open up my ceiling."
No, let's not.
David?
Someone.
I was
need
hoping
an
it was
adult.
just some mold, but like unattached.
to babies.
Right.
Yeah.
So what they found was a box, and in the box there were 10 little bodies wrapped up. There were some different descriptions on different articles of exactly what the arrangement was, but the 10 bodies were fetuses, so they were like stillborn babies and unborn babies. And then they found a tiny, tiny coffin that had a newborn in it that had passed away. So super, super, super sad.
And were they unclaimed?
So that's where there's a lot of unknown. They all had dates on them. And one of the dates was like written on the outside of the box or the wrapping or whatever. One of them was October 2017. One coroner said in an article that some of them appeared to be at least 3 years old. Like they were, but like they were been there for 3 years.
Yeah.
And the problem is there were no records of these children or these bodies. So they didn't have any way to track who they are or how they came to be there or like what the extent of the crime is.
Right.
There were 220 cremated bodies on site that had not been interred and were not properly labeled. And they were able to identify an impressive number of them as of October 23rd, 2018.
Oh, happy birthday to me.
Yes. There were still 50 that they didn't know who they were. There weren't enough records or information for them to identify the remains.
Well,
so
and I've heard that the cremated bodies. Well, no, like cremated bodies not being claimed is not uncommon.
right.
Some people just don't want to show up and do that. But
I also imagine there's a lot of like, no, you got to go get grandma. No, you have to go get grandma. I'm not going to get grandma.
Well,
then she'll be stuck at my house.
Right. So yeah, a lot of that. But I thought they were required to keep them until they were claimed, which is why sometimes there's just
tons.
Well, and like long term.
So that may be the case. The current plan for all of the ones that they can't identify is that they're going to inter all of them in like a wall, and they'll just be unclaimed, unmarked, but they'll keep some better records in case someone comes forward. So that it may be true that you have to handle them, but apparently you can put them away,
right?
And that's okay. So it was all very strange. There was another funeral home nearby, and they said that maybe this like explains it a little bit. What they had 63 fetuses and stillborn infants that they had there that were discovered like after a similar like shutdown or investigation or whatever else. And theirs, they were fairly certain that people had donated the bodies. And the funeral home, they were in the funeral home's possession. They're like, what are we going to do with this baby? Let's donate it. And maybe somebody else they can discover what happened and someone else won't have to suffer. And then the funeral home just never followed through with the donation process. And so they just had them. And they thought maybe that's...
So no, the families
wouldn't have known. They assumed they had gone to wherever they wanted. They had their funeral.
But then, because we've done that, and the organization... I mean, I suppose if you're a first timer, you don't know this, but the organization that you donate the body or the parts to, like, they're all really respectful, and like there are ceremonies, and they write to you, and like it's a big deal when you donate.
But I also think, especially because these were like, I assume miscarriages mostly, that maybe that was not. Following through on that and seeing what happened to the child that you were really excited for that then passed away was not a priority.
No, I can see that. And even when we did that, like, they followed up, which was nice, but we never would have.
Right. And maybe you just don't want to know. Like, you feel like you've done something good in that person's memory, and that is good enough. Yep. You don't want to hear about what happens to them.
Right. I don't need a play-by-play.
Right. So they don't really know a whole lot more than that. Obviously, these guys were not following any kind of law or code or anything. It is probably miraculous that they all weren't seriously ill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Robert Cantrell II is currently being charged with a felony.
Just one?
Well, no, multiple. But
okay, good.
so the big problem, felony, whatever, failure to or refusal to supervise appropriate disposal of a body more than 180 days after taking possession of it. And it can cost you 10 years in prison and or $50,000 fine.
Wow.
So
Are you going to write him a helpful note for his upcoming prison? Like how to?
well, no,
In
because
case he wants to get a tattoo.
he's a guy. All bets are off. He just needs to try to survive.
I mean, I'm sure he'll also need to do laundry
Perhaps.
and make toilet wine.
Bar of soap in a pillowcase. Slam it in the steel door. Don't hit your finger.
Excellent.
Now
Got
you
that,
can
Mr.
wash your
Cantrell?
clothes. So, my guess is that he is not able to listen to podcasts currently.
Probably not.
It's been a couple months.
You should write him a letter.
No, thank you. No, we have we discussed it, or was it me and Jordan, about not contacting prisoners? We're not going on that train.
No.
Yeah.
No, because you might fall in love.
Oh God, that's not likely.
No.
But more like I might taunt them, or they might find out I podcasted about them, and then one day they might get.
Again, we have unique names.
Yeah, we are pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
Also, we've talked about where we are.
Yeah.
And so, but I do live in a safe place. Although I do need to change the battery in my doorbell.
I also need to change the battery in my doorbell. It just emailed me to tell me it was dead.
It emails for 3 days. Then it just is dead, and you can't do anything
I
about it.
like
and mine
living
gets-
in a world where my doorbell emails me.
Right?
Yeah?
It's amazing.
Yes.
Diana, do you have a story for us?
I do.
Good, let's change the subject.
All right. Dorothea Helen Gray was born on January 9th, 1929 in Redlands, California, to Trudy May and Jesse James Gray.
How do you guys feel about the name Trudy?
Not great.
No?
It also is turdy. If you just convert a couple letters, so
Yeah,
I
no.
actually feel really good about that being someone else's name,
Yeah, but I don't want it for me.
but not me. I actually knew a girl named Trudy in high school,
It's just not a young person's
but
name.
I wonder, I very much wondered how her
How
parents
did you come up with that?
It had to be a
got
grandma's
there.
name or
I
something. It's an
guess.
old lady name.
It's an old lady.
It
name.
is.
Her
but
brother's
I
name was Mark.
just
which-
don't hate it. Her what?
Her younger brother was Mark.
I thought you said
My
her
father's
mother's
name.
name was Mark.
No, her brother.
It's
Oh.
my father's name.
My father's name is not Mark.
No.
It's Michael. We covered this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but his brother is Mark.
My dad's brother is not Mark or
Is
Mike.
it Michael? Oh man, that would have been
No.
awesome.
David and James.
David and James. I don't have an Uncle James.
I have several Uncle James.
I have an adorable
But we all
new
have an
cousin.
Aunt Sharon.
We do.
It's true. Do you actually have an Aunt Sharon?
I have an aunt-in-law, Sharon.
I
That
do
totally
too.
counts.
Yeah, Jeff's Aunt
How
Sharon.
funny is that?
I wasn't kidding when I
Yeah.
said we all have Aunt Sharons.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
cute. I thought we just all got yours.
I mean, she's nice too.
All right.
Trudy May and Jesse James were cotton pickers.
Jesse James.
That was his name, Jesse James Gray.
Okay.
Jesse died of tuberculosis when she was 9 years old,
Oh
and her mother died in a car accident the following year.
man.
She was sent to an orphanage until relatives in Fresno took her in. In 1925, Dorothea moved to Olympia, Washington, where she performed sex work and caught the eye of a soldier named Fred McFall, who had just returned from the war. They got married and had 2 daughters together. Dorothea sent one of them to Sacramento and gave the other one up for adoption.
Wait.
She
That
was.
took a twist that I was not expecting.
She's not into the mom life.
Wow.
She later had a miscarriage, and after that, McFall left her, but I don't think they were related.
Gotcha.
The next few years are a bit blurry. She was sentenced to jail for a year for forging checks and was paroled after 6 months. She got pregnant by a guy she barely knew and gave that daughter up for adoption, too.
Right.
That one might have been twins. There are conflicting stories about whether that baby exists and who and how many. Kind of a mystery there.
Wow.
In 1952, she married Axel Johansson, and they were together for 14 years, which were noted as turbulent,
Ooh.
in part because of Dorothea's fondness for drinking, gambling, and other men.
Yeah, I feel like that's not a good recipe for marriage.
Nope. In 1961, Axel had her committed to a psychiatric ward, and she was placed on antipsychotics.
Oh.
In the 60s, at some point, Dorothea was arrested for owning and managing a brothel, did 90 days in the Sacramento County Jail.
She moved into management.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
She's actually following the right life.
She was apparently pretty good at it. Like,
I mean, there are worse things
Yeah.
than being good at managing like a complicated business.
that's exactly what it is. She managed a complicated business. After her release, she was picked up again for vagrancy, spent another 90 days in jail. After she got out that time, she found work as a nurse's aide and cared for disabled and elderly people in their own homes.
Oh, no.
And soon she started managing boarding houses.
I just don't feel good about this.
It is a crime show. I don't know if you knew this.
It always ends poorly. Like every time.
Every
it kind
single
of ends
time.
Poorly.
It's kind of a downer.
It's kind of a downer. You're not supposed to bash the show you're guesting on.
I'm not bashing it. I'm just letting you know what's going to happen.
I like to guess, but then every time I ask a question, she always like, we're going to get there. We're going to get to it. We're going to get there. Every time. Yeah, I'm not allowed to guess.
You can guess, but you always guess a part of the story that exists.
I'm good at this.
You are. In 1966, Dorothea divorced Axel Johansson and married Roberto Puente in Mexico City. The marriage only lasted 2 years, but she kept his name for the rest of her life. Soon after that marriage ended, she took over a 3-story, 16-bedroom care home at 2100 F Street in Sacramento.
This is where the bad things happen. There's an address.
And she rented an apartment down the street. Her reputation at the F Street boarding house was mixed. She was known for her generous homemade meals and small acts of kindness, but others complained that she was cheap and refused to give them their mail or money.
Interesting. That's quite the dichotomy.
Mm-hmm. Dorothea got married for the 4th time in 1976. One of the articles I read also noticed that she was married 4 times, but they could only find 2 divorces.
Oh. Well, and also you said earlier that she kept the name for the rest of her life, which means she got married but didn't take her new husband's name.
Right. So she kept number 3's name for the rest of her life.
How would you feel as husband number 4 in this situation?
I mean, I would not be husband number 4.
I was going to say, yeah.
True.
Either she was being dishonest, which
Seems
Seems
likely.
likely.
Or he knew what he was getting into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so she married a guy in 1976, husband number 4, named Pedro Montalvo, who was a violent alcoholic. And that marriage only lasted a few months. She then started frequenting local bars, looking for older men who were receiving benefits. She had forged their signatures to steal their money. God damn it, Dave.
Dave, we're trying to record a podcast. Stop texting Diana and interrupting our show.
Thank you.
Just need to clip that. God damn it, Dave, and just use it frequently.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you could make it his ringtone, like his text alert.
Oh, I probably
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
God
damn
damn
it,
it.
Dave.
I wonder if anybody still has that around.
Oh, yes.
She would forge their signatures to steal their money. She was caught and charged with 34 counts of treasury fraud,
Wow.
for which she received
3 months.
Amanda?
Suspended sentence.
Probation! In April of 1982, Dorothea's friend and business partner Ruth Monroe began living with Dorothea in her rented apartment. But she quickly died of an overdose of codeine and acetaminophen. Dorothea told police that Ruth had been very depressed because her husband was terminally ill. Also, fuck you for moving out of your house, lady.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's
I moved
horrifying.
in with my friend because my husband is dying and I'm depressed about it.
Right.
Obviously, I
Maybe he
care
was
about him.
in like a care home.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
She
Yeah.
live
Or
alone?
hospital,
That
yeah.
seems reasonable. Ruth's death was ruled a suicide. Several weeks later,
Not a suicide.
one of the residents of the boarding home, Malcolm Mackenzie, who was 74, accused Dorothea of drugging him and stealing his pension. She was charged and convicted of theft in August of that year and was sentenced to 5 years in jail. While she was in jail, she started corresponding with 77-year-old Everson Gilmouth.
She's like, I am in jail for robbing somebody who's old like you. Do you want to be my boyfriend?
Oh.
And my husband.
Dorothea was released after 3 years, and Gilmouth was there to bring her home in his red pickup truck.
Oh,
True love.
She promptly moved him into her apartment in Sacramento and opened a joint bank account, and soon they were making wedding plans. Dorothea decided that she needed to spruce her place up, so she hired a handyman, Ismael Flores, I think that's how you say that, to install some wood paneling in her apartment because it was the 80s.
So I want to make this look better with paneling.
And when they showed the picture of the house she lived in, do you remember that house I stayed in San Francisco that was like the little Victorian? It looks just like that.
Nice.
So she lived in the second floor apartment. So a mini Victorian.
All of our listeners are like, "Oh yeah, that one."
I'll post the picture. It's a very, like, when you think Victorian, you think of like your parents' house with the multi-stories and all that. And it's the one I stayed in San Francisco had a garage on the level with the street. This one looked like it had like a living room and stuff, and then she lived upstairs. But yeah, it's just a wee one. Oops.
A tiny tobacco farmer.
Tiny Victorians, tiny tobacco
It's all
farmers.
tiny. So she hired this guy to put in some paneling. She paid him $800 and a 1982 red pickup truck that she said belonged to her boyfriend in L.A. who didn't need it anymore.
Oh, noes.
She also asked Flores to build a box,
How
6
much
feet.
paneling did she have installed? Because in the 80s, $800 is
Contractors, man.
and a pickup truck, like,
And
it's a
truck.
tiny Victorian. She
It
couldn't
is.
have put that much paneling in there.
Well, she only rented half of it, but she also had another
Why
job
was
for
she
him.
fixing up a house she was renting?
I think eventually she did buy it. Like, there's a lot more to this.
If someone gives you a truck and they're like, "This is my boyfriend's, he doesn't need it anymore. Can you build me a box 6 feet by whatever you were about to say?"
6 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet to store books and stuff.
And stuff.
She killed
and
him.
stuff.
He's dead.
She then asked him to help her transport the now nailed shut box to a storage facility. But on the way there, she asked him to stop and then dumped the box in an unofficial household dumping spot on the riverbank.
And he was like, "Meh, whatever, I got a car
Seems legit.
and we're good."
Yeah, who wants to rent storage space?
I hired you to build a box so I could store my stuff. Like, it's important stuff.
I
Then
think he
nailed
actually
it
got
shut.
hired to install paneling. And then it went real sideways.
Hold on.
But then I just dump it out the side of the truck, and like I
fine.
just decided I didn't want this is a lot of work. I don't need those books.
Right. Screw this, man. A couple of months later, a fisherman found the box.
Yeah. He was like, "I bet there are books and shit in here."
He called the police.
Good boy.
And they found a badly decomposed and unidentifiable body of an elderly man.
I know who it is.
Well, you know who it is, but it would be 3 years before they were able to identify him as Everson Gilmouth. This entire time, so she bought the house by now. This entire time, Dorothea was still living in her second floor apartment and renting out the lower portion of the house. She was popular with local social workers because she would take the tough cases that nobody else wanted, including drug addicts and people who had been abusive in other places. She'd collect the tenants' mail and paid them an allowance, keeping the rest of their money for expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dorothea had been ordered to stay away from the elderly and to not handle government checks, agents regularly visited her to check in. Between her release from prison in 1985 and 1988, agents visited her at least 15 times, but no violations were noted.
They're
Phoning
keeping it
it
tight.
Yeah, running a tight ship there. Tenants continued to come and go from the boarding house, as people living in boarding houses tend to do. One of the more notable residents was a man known only as Chief, whom Dorothea said she'd adopted as her own personal handyman, which I don't think is what you're supposed to do with a handyman.
I mean, paneling in boxes is what
Right.
you do with a handyman.
Right, you don't
need
adopt
one
them.
of those.
Yeah.
I have to go back to the social worker thing. tight ship, I don't think. I feel like this was phoning it in.
But she would take anyone.
Well, right. So but 15 times and they didn't find anything wrong. I already know there's things wrong. They didn't look in the boxes of
You're
books.
really cynical.
It's a crime show. Nothing good ever happens.
That's true.
It's a real downer.
Yeah, I hear.
Chief. He did a bunch of stuff around the house, including removing soil and garbage from the property, putting in a new concrete slab in the basement,
Full of boxes of books.
and then tearing down a garage and installing a new concrete slab there too before he disappeared. Yeah. On November 11th, 1988, Armistice Day, people were alerted to the disappearance of Alberto Montoya, who is a developmentally disabled man with schizophrenia, by his social worker. People came to the house. Nope. Police came to the house on F Street.
Random
Just
people
randos.
came to the house.
And began to search the property. They noticed recently disturbed soil. Dorothea watched the police dig up her yard and even lent them a shovel to do so.
Wow, that is
She's a giver.
bold.
The men dug in the yard, turning up what looked like shards of cloth and
Shards of cloth is not like a phrase I would ever use.
I don't.
You want
I
the
don't think
next
it is
one?
a phrase.
and beef jerky.
Oh, no.
When they seemed to be stopped by a tree root, Detective John Cabrera grabbed it and started pulling. He pulled so hard that it did break loose, and when he pulled it up...
What kind of detectives are these? This is the late 80s. Presumably there are like crime scene units, right? That know you don't just dig things up with shovels and pull on them?
Late 80s? Maybe not.
Well, and they were looking for a disappeared man, not for a murdered man.
But they were looking in the ground for disappearance.
Right. Well, they were looking at the work that had been recently done.
I'm going to go with also... I'm not sure about no.
He pulled so hard that it broke loose, and when he pulled it up, he could see that it was a bone. Dorothea heard the commotion and came down to see what's up.
That's smart.
She peered down into the hole, and Cabrera told her that it was a body. She acted shocked.
Yes.
And slapped her hands to the side of her face.
Like Home Alone style.
Yeah.
Like Home Alone style, totally. The police decided to come back the next day with proper equipment to excavate.
In the meantime, they arrested her on suspicion of murder.
Oh, Lord, no. The next morning, a team returned with heavy equipment and began excavating the yard. Dorothea approached Detective Cabrera and asked if she was under arrest. And when she
I hung
said
around all night to see if you would arrest me.
Yeah. When he said no, she asked if she could walk down the street to go get some coffee. And he said yes and escorted her past the crowd that had gathered in front of her house. She was found in L.A. a few days later. After an elderly man she tried to pick up in a bar recognized her and called police.
Oh, God. It's a narrow mess.
Yeah. Altogether, 7 bodies were found in Dorothea Puente's yard. There was Alvaro Bert Montoya, who was 51, the developmentally disabled schizophrenic who argued in Spanish with the voices in his head and called Puente Mama. He was found under the newly planted apricot tree in the side yard.
Oh, man.
Dorothy Miller was a Native American with drinking problem who liked to recite poems about heartbreak. She was found with her arms taped to her chest with duct tape.
Oh, my gosh.
The last time her social worker saw her, she was sitting on the front porch smoking a cigarette. Benjamin Fink, a 55-year-old alcoholic found dressed in striped boxer shorts. Shortly before he disappeared in April 1988, Puente told another boarder that she was going to take Ben upstairs and make him feel better.
Oh.
Betty Palmer, 78, whose remains, missing the head, hands, and lower legs, were found in a sleeveless white nightgown below a statue of Saint Francis of Assisi, a few feet from the sidewalk at the front of the house. Leona Carpenter, 78, who was discharged from the hospital to Puente's care in February it says 78, but I think it's 88, and had spent several weeks agonizing on a sofa before disappearing. She was buried near the back fence, and it was her leg bone that Detective Cabrera mistook for a tree root. James Gallup, 62-year-old, who survived a heart attack and brain tumor, but not Dorothea Puente. Vera Faye Martin, 64.
Terrible. You just very quietly finished that sentence out, but you should say it again because it was terrible.
James Gallup, a 62-year-old who survived a heart attack and brain tumor surgery, but not Dorothea Puente. Vera Faye Martin, 64, whose wristwatch was still ticking when she was unearthed.
Oh, there is something so tragic about that.
It's probably one of those watches like Ben had on.
Yes.
It just goes on
it's
forever.
48 years
Forever.
old
Yes.
and never dies.
Mm-hmm. The trial began in October 1992 and ended a year later. She was convicted of 3 of the murders, but the jurors could not agree on the other 6. The judge declared a mistrial when the jury said that further deliberations would not change their minds. Under California law, this meant that Dorothea Puente received life without the possibility of parole.
For a mistrial?
They said mistrial, but I don't think that's right because she was convicted of the 3. I think it was a mistrial on the other 6, and they didn't reconvict her.
Oh, okay. Because she was already going to get life, so
Right,
whatever.
there was no point.
Okay.
She died at Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla, California at the age of 82, maintaining her innocence to the very end. So I found this story from a Ranker article called...
We do really good research.
Yeah.
Well,
the
gotta
ideas
start
have to come from somewhere, yeah.
No, it's...
So the article was called, "We Asked Some Hardcore Criminals Their Favorite Flavor of Ice Cream and Other Random Questions." So this is what they said about Dorothea Puente. In the 80s, Dorothea Puente ran a boarding house in Sacramento, California, and cashed the Social Security checks of her elderly and mentally disabled boarders. Those who complained were killed and buried in her yard. Puente was eventually caught and charged with 9 murders in 1988. She received a life sentence and died in prison in 2011 from natural causes. She was 88 years old. She was 82. In 2009, while still in prison, Puente told an interviewer that what she enjoyed and didn't enjoy reading. "I like to read almost anything except vampire or the Harry Potter books. I love Dan Brown, also the book Schindler's List. I also like historical romance." So my story is called, "What do you expect from someone who doesn't like Harry Potter?"
I approve this message.
My favorite quote from Dorothea Puente when she was arrested was, "I used to be a very good person at one time."
Which time? Because we missed that part of
We
the
missed
story.
that whole time.
Well, maybe when she was a kid.
Maybe.
She had a rough start.
She did. Wow. Yep, that was it. That was my whole reaction.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
No.
That's all
So,
I got.
do you think they found all of the body? When they said that there were 9 in the yard, did that include all? Did they dig up the concrete? Oh my God, I'm still wearing antlers.
You didn't know that?
No, I can't feel them.
She's been wearing
I
them
think
for 2
so.
days.
I have been wearing it for 2 days. The whole time that she's been singing. Simply.
Yeah. No, I think they found everybody. No. I think they found everybody who was in the yard. I'm not
Right.
convinced that was all, but she wasn't
Well,
talking.
no. Right.
And it was all Social Security checks. You know, she
Right.
kept cashing them. They all came to her, all of that.
Right.
But who knows?
That's crappy. What a crappy, thing to prey on that population.
Yeah.
They're totally helpless people.
Well, and to look like...
You're such a good person. Why do
Right.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crappy.
Yep.
I was listening to that show that I was talking about, the I'm a Killer series on Netflix. And one of the first guy that I've talked about before on the podcast, the one that intentionally murdered some of his fellow inmates because he would have preferred death row, and then pled guilty and asked to be sentenced to death row, which they accommodated. And I have feelings about that, but whatever. But one of his motivating factors was he had been sentenced to life in prison, And that meant he was going to die in prison. And if you die on death row, even though it comes sooner than maybe your natural death would, you're surrounded by people. Your loved ones can come. People get to say goodbye. If you die in prison just naturally, you're just there by yourself with no one to take care of you, and you just die. And so it was far preferable to give up some years in exchange for a death that wasn't so terrifying and alone. And so
horrible
I say
decision
that,
to make.
Well, right. But I say that to say that the vindictive part of me is glad that that was her experience after all the horrible things that she did.
Yeah, but she got to spend all those years reading Dan Brown.
I do enjoy Dan Brown quite a bit, but she missed out on Harry Potter. So
No, she tried it.
Well, but she missed out.
She also tried the vampire novels.
She did, and I am a little pissed that she put them in the same category. Those are not the same thing. Yeah.
I mean, she didn't read your vampire novel.
Maybe that would have changed her mind.
I mean, it is really like top shelf.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Vampire or whatever.
I bet you could get it. I bet you could get it in some prison libraries.
I don't have anything for her. Obviously, she was
Horrible human being.
horrible. Like, psychopath. Actually, she probably was.
Yeah.
But that gets again to the nature nurture argument.
Probably not what Trudy and Jesse imagined.
No.
Well, no, but also like Trudy and Jesse left her in a bad place.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they had a whole lot of options. They were cotton pickers.
Well, right, but I mean, the deck was stacked against her to begin with.
Yeah.
No parents, no relatives that were interested in taking her in, no education.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, at some point, she also made the decision to kill people and prey on helpless people.
Well, yeah, no.
So
I'm not excusing it, but
So
you kind of wonder too what the mind set of somebody who just doesn't feel like they have options
and isn't loved and doesn't experience that at all,
Right.
which is like a super big need. Did I miss cause of death?
Natural causes.
No, not hers. Her victims. Did it say how she killed them?
I don't think
Because
it
the
did.
rest of it sounds very much like a female serial killer, or I guess she's not a serial.
No, she is.
Yeah.
Did she have like all of the acceleration and cooldown and all of that?
No.
She
She just got rid of them when they were problematic.
Just prolific.
right.
So she was a process. Well, no, she wasn't. No, she wasn't a serial killer, I guess.
Yeah,
Let me
it
back
didn't
off on
sound
that
like
statement.
she didn't kill people for the pleasure of killing them.
No, and she
It
didn't
was
kill them
all
because she wanted the body.
financially.
So she wasn't product or process.
Right. Just financially motivated.
Just financially motivated, which frankly a lot of female killers are. They don't fit neatly
No.
into the categories. Those were mostly created with men in mind.
Right. But I was
wasn't
just
in
interested to
danger.
know, like, did she poison them? I feel like she poisoned them.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
That's the
I
new
didn't find
truth.
that.
She poisoned them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. But
Yeah, that
she
sounds
wasn't
about
like Aileen Wuornos, who insisted that they all attacked her.
Right.
You know.
Oh, wait. There was the thing about the duct tape.
Yeah, one
She
of them was
did
duct taped up.
That was kind of violent.
Yeah.
So,
But she was also, like, when you see the pictures, she looks like your granny.
Yeah.
She's like a little old white-haired lady
yeah.
that, you know, kind of ran to middle-aged tubby and then slimmed down when she got older. Like,
yeah.
she looks like the woman that lives down the street.
Fred and
She
Rosemary.
was.
What's their
West.
name? West. Yeah.
No, Fred looked like a fucking creeper.
Oh no, 100%. I just was thinking about like old murderers.
They weren't old. They started young.
Well, yeah, but they were old when
When they were caught. They were
When they were
middle-aged.
caught,
Yeah,
yeah.
they were middle-aged when they were caught. I think after that, I think, too, you lose the capacity to do a lot of killing when you're older. Like,
Yeah.
you're just
well, yeah.
not in good shape anymore for that.
Right.
But, yeah. Yeah, what I can't understand is, again, she's like a little lady. She's not a big,
Right.
hulking Amazon woman. How? Like, that's what I wasn't able to find out, is how did she get them in there? Was it all Chief? Did she have an accomplice?
I was going to say, it sounds like she was pretty good at manipulating men around her into doing things that they should have known better. I mean, her
first handyman?
guy,
Yeah.
made her a coffin and then didn't even do anything when she dumped it in the water. Like,
Well, and she was also dealing with developmentally disabled and or mentally ill people.
Right.
For the most part. So
you probably could, I bet. And she was not at all, God, I can't think of the word.
I don't know. But I do think you're right. Like, the killing part wouldn't have been the hard part. It would have been
the disposal.
The disposal.
Yeah.
But at least Chief did a ton of cover up of so if she just could get them there, she didn't have to do a whole lot.
Or maybe they were there. Maybe somebody other than Chief helped her.
Right.
He did the, handiwork.
Right.
But also, like, I don't know where he is.
Right.
But did she kill him, or did he wander off because he was a homeless alcoholic?
Right.
Or,
realized what he'd been a part of and decided to get out of town.
Yeah.
Or like all kinds of
so it's hard to even know with some of these people, did she kill them, or did they wander off and get lost to the system? And,
Right.
Are there more victims? I mean, maybe, but
right.
we may never know.
So, this week we are still doing our podcast review challenge thingamabobber thing and leaving reviews for podcasts because you guys left us reviews. Diana, what have you been listening to?
So I mentioned last week that I am a terrible podcast listener.
Yes.
So I'm actually starting out with leaving reviews for some of my favorites.
Awesome.
So this week I am leaving a review for Occulte Veritatis, which I have.
Of course you are. Guys, she's not like a crazy stalker. Like, she's not going to come find you in real life, but it's getting serious.
No, you guys. I love you. So they are I guess they're still kind of newer. They've been around a year and a half, almost 2 years, I think. And they...
About our age.
Yeah. And they just do a whole bunch of fascinating topics. They've done... the latest one I listened to, because I'm a little behind, was like Secrets of Antarctica, where they talked about kind of how Antarctica works. They've talked about the bodies on Everest. They've talked about UFO phenomenon. The newest one, I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm so excited to, is on homeopathy. They're going to have a good time with that. So they are skeptical, I believe atheists. They start out every show with "What's your poison?" So somebody brings a drink, or because they are in Canada, somebody brings some nice weed over and they sample it.
There you go.
And then Ood, who is one of the hosts, puts together a palate cleanser at the end, which is some kind of song. And then they do an after show with just like extra facts, and they read letters, and it's well researched. They're a fun time. It's 3 hosts, Ood and Leon and Sage Murray. Ood Gallifrey and Leon Felger and Sage Murray. And they're just a lot of fun. They occasionally have guests on. They had their friend Val on once, and now occasionally they pray to Val, and she'll come in as like a goddess figure, Valhalla.
Nice.
Oh, the one that was really fascinating, if you want to start out with a super good one, Leon works as a bioethics facilitator.
Okay.
And he did a whole episode on what that means and what he does and how bioethics works in the setting of medical care.
Oh.
And it was really, really interesting. I had no idea kind of how those kinds of decisions
all of
are
that.
made.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really fascinating topics. They have wonderful rapport. They're interesting and they're fun, and I really love it.
Awesome.
So go check it out.
Awesome. I just was looking at my podcast list, and I am subscribed, although I have not yet listened. So
you should
get on that. I'm a really bad, I will binge every podcast I can get my hands on for a couple of months, and then I'm like, okay, I'm just not really feeling it for a couple of months. So I'm sort of in that just getting back into it.
Yep.
So
yeah. The other thing I would say too is that there are sometimes when I find a new podcast and I like it, and then I start listening from the beginning, and sometimes they're rough.
Yeah, it takes a while.
It takes a while. And
any independent, probably any podcast, but certainly independent ones, the first 10, but deserve a little leeway.
I don't know if the Occulte Veritatis crew did something previously, or if they did a bunch of practice episodes, or what it was. But even from the beginning, their segments were tight. They've done a really nice job all the way through, and it just keeps getting better.
Ours is just evolving and evolving and evolving.
Right.
Cool.
So what's your podcast?
I am a bad person. I don't have a new one.
Okay.
So I'm also going to do one of my old favorites. And I think I've actually left this person a review. I am positive I've already left a review for these guys. But so I will have to go out and find another one to leave a review for. And That's Why We Drink with Em and Christine. And it is another murder podcast with girls telling murder stories. Actually, theirs is a little bit of a different twist because Christine tells murder stories, and Em does a supernatural story.
Oh.
So hauntings and lots of dolls and all that kind of thing.
Creepy doll watch.
They are very. I love the style of theirs. It was actually one of the ones that I feel like influenced how sort of Crime Crazy started out. And it's I tell a story, you tell a story, we do all the reactions. It's always secret up until the time, like similar format to ours. But they have a really engaged fan base, which is really cool. And like Christine just got married and everyone was sort of part of that experience with her. And they're really neat. Really neat people, and I enjoy their podcast very much. So, not the one I will be reviewing because I reviewed it like a year ago, but definitely one to check out.
Cool.
So, and it's called "And That's Why We Drink." I think I said that.
You
but
did.
Okay. You did.
Amanda,
are
do
you
have one?
listening to anything?
Ooh, what am I listening to? So I have some standbys. My very favorite, always makes it to top, is the Judge John Hodgeman.
Mm-hmm.
Which is sort of like Judge Judy, but for bougie, insignificant issues in your life.
And John Hodgman is not like an asshole that talks over people.
Correct. He is hilarious.
Yeah.
And also very thoughtful and generally is very kind and really wants to know, like, the issue you come in is ridiculous. Like the one they were doing right around Halloween was these two sisters who were big into cosplay, which is, I think, like the whitest hobby ever. And one of them had this idea that she wanted to be steampunk Carrie at prom. And the other sister was like, well, you actually never get around to doing that. And I do. So I'm going to steal your idea.
Oh, okay. I mean, that is shitty, but also like,
but
this
also
is not
you
a
never
problem.
actually do these things, right?
Right.
So like, I'm gonna do it. And she's
Right.
like, no, I'm really gonna do it this time. So they went to the judge and really thoughtfully taken apart though. Like, so these are your life. This is da 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 da, and it's
That sounds really interesting.
They're
That's
very,
totally
very
different
fun.
than what I usually listen to.
I think my favorite Judge John Hodgman was the one where the dad brought his daughter on because she was a huge Eugene Werman fan and they'd seen him in public and she'd been too scared to go up and say anything. So there were two things I really loved about that episode. One, where Judge John Hodgman was like, look, here's how you approach somebody on the street whose work you admire. Like, here's what you do to make this not an annoying experience for everybody.
Right.
And second of all, of course, he knows Eugene Merman. So he brought him on the
Oh
show
my God.
so that the girl could talk to him.
that's adorable.
It was very sweet.
If you needed one to start with, my favorite is the one where the boy doesn't want to go to prom. The son does not want to go to his prom, and his mother wants him to go to prom.
Right.
It's great.
So
great.
I've heard that one.
Yeah.
Cool. So many new things to listen to.
Yay.
I'm excited. Of course, I'm going to be listening to us while I edit for years. That's sort of my life.
True.
All right. So we did these because we have a review to shout out.
We do.
And some other people to shout out. So.
All right. So first up, Crime Crazy is sponsored by Elizabeth Wilder and Dave Hatt.
Woohoo!
A special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support Crime Crazy, please check out our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/crimecrazypod or search for Crime Crazy Podcast. All patrons get a monthly shout out on the show. We also give shout outs for reviews. And we have another one. Remember that we're running our new
Challenge?
thing.
Deal?
Where for
Holiday
every
challenge, I hear those are really popular with the young people.
I don't think our demographic includes very many young people.
No,
with the youth.
it's true.
You guys are the young people.
Diana is way too old to attract young people to our podcast.
Yeah, they don't think I'm groovy anymore.
But yes, no, our new challenge, Groovy.
Waiting for you to catch on to that one.
Took me a second. It's late.
So for every review we receive for the podcast, we will each leave a review for a podcast we are listening to. We are also happy to take suggestions, by the way.
Yes.
So that is why we were just
Especially
telling
from
you
you guys, because you have excellent taste.
Oh my gosh, yes. So that's why you just heard about a couple of our favorites. So we do have another review this week. It is
a 5-star review.
Yay!
I thought you were waiting for me to say who it was, and I'm like, oh God, I don't remember.
I don't even know this person.
What? No.
You guys have hit the big time.
I know, right?
So we have we have received a review from
a 5-star review.
Yay!
Now that I know what I'm supposed to say.
Yes. From Kate Baby in the United States. Thank you, Kate Baby.
Thank you.
It was a lovely review. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you'd like to receive a shout out, please rate and review us on iTunes, your podcast catcher of choice. We give shout outs for all reviews.
We like the 5-star ones the best.
Yes, we do. You can follow Crime Crazy on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/crimecrazypod. From there, catch up on the conversation at one of our 2 discussion groups. You can follow us on Twitter at crimecrazypod, on Instagram at crimecrazypod, visit our website at crimecrazypodcast.com, or email us at crimecrazypodcast@gmail.com.
We might get around to checking our email one of these weeks.
It's been so boring in there.
It's been a lot of Staples ads.
It has. You can follow us on Twitter. You're at
Erin Klein.
I'm at Diane_Secon.
Are you on Twitter? Do you want followers?
On Twitter, I think I'm actually a bot.
You're a bot on
Yeah,
Twitter?
like
No,
literally,
I
literally am a bot. It just
I think you are.
retweets stuff from our company.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
an if this, then that. I think I'm just a bot, so nobody wants that.
Amanda's boring on Twitter.
Really boring on Twitter.
You can follow us on Instagram where Amanda is not boring. You're at
E-Plime.
You're at
Al Mighton.
and I'm at Diana_Secon.
I don't know why, but when you finish that part, every time you look at me like, and now it's your turn to talk. And I know that it is. And every time you look at me, I'm like, shit, what was I supposed to say about social media? I don't remember. I don't know what we're talking about.
I thought you handled this part.
Right. Do you have any advice for us this week?
I do. Go and download the app DreamLab.
Yes.
Help us fight some cancer, please.
Right? In a totally like passive, no actual work for you kind of way.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, as somebody who has family members dealing with cancer right now, there's so little that I can actually concretely do to make sure other families don't go through this. This is one of those things.
Right. Right.
So help us out.
Absolutely.
Call your people.
Call your people.
Call your people.
And don't end up on next week's episode. And a happy new year. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time.
I hear money being dropped on the floor. Like, that is a distinct sound. How funny. I love it.
I mean,
hope
it
our
is the
kids are
first day
being
of
loud.
Hanukkah. Maybe they've got the dreidel out.
It is the first day of Hanukkah.
I know. I just read Morgan's text.
Oh, that was going to say, my sister was just posting about that.
That was actually all I could read of the text was, it's the first day of Hanukkah.
Oh, yeah.
So-
She was talking about, Alexa's thing today was about, shit, I forget what it was that her thing was about, but she was like, that's really appropriate because it's the first day of Hanukkah. It was
Like they planned it. Like they can read a calendar.
Like they know.
Right?
Well, we all know
National
that reading
Fritter
a calendar
Day.
is not some people's strong suit.
Yes, he also, and every house cleaner.
So actually what she said is that it's a little off because it was National Fritter Day on Alexa and the first day of Hanukkah.
Fritters.
Wait, the fritters got top billing?
Well, but the first day of Hanukkah isn't till sundown today, right?
Oh, yeah, it is a sundown sort of event,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So the fritter thing probably started this morning.
Right.
So they were just going.
It's an all-day event.
Right. They finished out. She told me all about National Novel Writing Month on the 29th, which was pretty cool.
Yay.
I was like,
Oh,
that's
Alexa did?
amazing. Mm-hmm. Yes. I just think it's
Were you
really,
like, oh, I've never heard of this before?
right, national, not what? How does that work? So
I hear that you've written some great nano novels.
I have written some nano novels. That is true.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Great.
Saved them in places where others
Yeah.
might have access.
Oh, you mean like Google audits
Yeah, yeah.
and like the entire technology department and the school board?
Yep.
Oops.
Yeah.
Yep.
Vampire porn. Yeah.
Awesome.
You let your daughter listen to this podcast.
I don't let her. Haven't we covered this? She's explicitly not allowed to listen to this podcast.
Are you E.L. James? No, that's the other
No.
one. Who's the horrible vampire sparkle one?
Oh, Susan something?
No, Stephanie?
No,
Stephanie Meyer?
Meyer.
Meyer.
Yeah.
Are
That
you
seems right.
Stephanie
Yeah.
Meyer.
I am not. Mine was a
E.L.
little
James
more
is
E.L.
50
James
Shades.
style.
50 Shades,
yeah.
yeah.
Mine was a little more on that level.
Yeah, because
Except
Stephanie
not-
Meyer is like Mormon, right? And so that's why
Right.
the novels
But-
were all very like
But 50 Shades was
Yeah.
fan fiction.
also terrible.
Well, they're all goddamn horrible, but
Right.
That's
so
true.
it
It
was
was
also
that's
about vampires, and mine was about vampires and had sex. So I'm more like E.L. James.
okay.
And it was terrible. So like I fit right in.
The greats: Stephanie Myers, E.L. James, Aaron Plott.
That's right. God damn it. That is not a list I ever wanted to be on.
You're
Yeah. So between that and the gin, it's just constant over here.
I mean,
We were playing Cards Against Humanity here the other night.
Oh, man.
And we're going through the cards, and all of our new friends are like, I don't know what this means. This isn't funny. It doesn't make any sense. And they're all like jabs at me, and they're all in Amanda's handwriting.
I don't think I wrote them. I mean, I obviously wrote them, but I don't think I came up with them all. I think that you probably went to bed, and Ben and David and I sat around at the lake.
To make fun of me.
Well, that's what we do when you're not there. I mean, often when you are there, but...
Uh-huh.
Like, that is a distinct sound.
Yep. They're probably gambling. Maybe.
It is the first day of Hanukkah. I know, I just heard Morgan's just posting about it.
all I could read of the text was the first day of Hanukkah.
She was talking about Alexa's thing today was about shit, I forget what it was that her thing was about, but she was like, that's really appropriate because it's the first day of Hanukkah.
Funny.
It was about
Like they know. Well, we all know that reading a calendar is not some people's strong suits.
So actually what she said is that it's a little off because it was National Fritter Day on Alexa.
Fritters.
Wait, the Fritters got top billing?
Well, but the first day of Hanukkah isn't till sundown today, right?
Yeah, it is a sundown sort of event.
Yeah.
So the Fritters thing probably started this morning.
Right.
They're just going.
It's an all-day event.
They finished out, she told me all about National Novel Writing Month on the 29th, which was pretty cool.
Yay.
Oh, Alexa did?
That's cool.
Were you like, oh, I've never heard of this before?
Right, National Not What? written some nano novels. That is true.
Mhm.
Great.
Save them in places where others might have access.
Oh, you mean like Google audits?
Yeah.
And like the entire technology department and the school board?
Oops.
Yeah. Vampire porn. Yeah.
Awesome.
You let your daughter listen to this podcast.
She's explicitly not allowed to listen to this podcast.
Are you E.L. James? No, that's the other one. Who's the horrible vampire sparkle one?
Oh. Susan something?
No, Stephanie?
Stephanie Meyer?
Are you Stephanie Meyer?
I am not. Mine was a little more E.L. James.
50 Shades, yeah.
Mine was a little more on that level. Except not.
Meyer is like Mormon, right? And so
Right,
novels
but
are all very, like,
but 50 Shades was fan fiction. Well, they're all goddamn horrible, but
Right, so it was also about vampires, and mine was about vampires and had sex, so I'm more like E.L. James.
okay.
And it was terrible, so like I fit right in.
the greats.
Yeah.
Stephanie Myers, E.L. James, Aaron Paul.
God damn it, that is not a list I ever wanted to be on.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so between that and the gin, it's just a constant.
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were playing Cards Against Humanity here the other night.
Oh man.
And we're going through the cards, and all of our new friends are like, what does this mean? This is so funny. It doesn't make any sense. And they're all like jabs at me. And they're all in Amanda's handwriting.
I don't think I wrote them. I mean, I obviously wrote them. I don't think I came up with them all. I think that you probably went to bed, and Ben and David and I sat around at the lake.
To make fun of me.
Well, that's what we do when you're not there.